Hey everyone, back at you, James Patrick. I'm gonna dig through some more sounds in this particular track, this sub dub by Hungelman, one of my artist aliases, and let's in particular focus on the squishy sound. This is a really popular sound for people like who love Tipper and other kinds of modern bass psychedelic genres. It's a really fun sound to make. There's a lot of different ways to make this sound, but let's listen to this track and listen closely for these kind of squishy sounds that come in around bar 9. Yeah. Everybody loves those guys. You can kind of see that I've got the MIDI track originally where I made the sound here, and I've colored it black to remind myself, and then some audio versions where I've resampled it so I can further, fine tune when and where those sounds happen. More on that in another Punkademic and Slam Academy video. But meanwhile, you can see how I did this technique, how I got to this point, just by taking a look at my MIDI instrument. In this case, I happen to use an electric piano, which is a really weird instrument for this technique, but I just liked the way it sounded. And the workflow is this. You just play a really, really low note. I'm talking like -2 octave, like the lowest notes you possibly can, pretty much subharmonic sound. And all you're going to end up getting is some clicks, maybe some texture and some grit out of your instrument. And then you modulate a bandpass filter on those clicks, usually with an LFO. Here I've got a grain delay and a couple gates on there to really punctuate that sound and make that awesome. Let's go ahead and build one of those from scratch for good measure, just to make sure you got that squishy workflow. And I think I'll demonstrate it in this case just with the classic square wave, which is how most people end up doing it. I'm going to head over to a new MIDI track, and I'm going to grab an operator and throw it on there. Nice digital synthesizer of any variety will pull this off. And then I'm going to hit the letter M to engage my computer MIDI keyboard, and I'm going to hit Z a couple times on my MIDI keyboard to go down a couple octaves. I'm going all the way down, in fact. I'm going to click on my synthesizer, and instead of using a sine wave, that actually won't work. I got to do a square wave. The Ableton operator has a digital square that's just nice and crispy. You can hear those guys. Of course, that at an octave or two up is bass, but we go so low and it's just clicking. We can even take it a little further by hitting fixed mode, and now we can put this wherever we want. If we take the multiplier and go by 0.1, this is like 10 hertz, not 100. So right in between that sweet spot of where it starts to resonate, which is like 20 or 30 clicks a second, down to like 8 or 10 clicks a second is where we start getting into just straight silence in between the clicks, is a great starting point. Then the next move is just to use a bandpass filter. It's fun to have like an envelope triggered filter for this sometimes, which you would want to have inside of your synthesizer. Otherwise, the Ableton Auto filter is absolutely juicy for this. Let's just start with that. I'm going to go ahead and just give myself a little resonance for a little more kind of squeak on the click there. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my LFO and modulate the filter cutoff. So now we're starting to get there. A nice little shape mover on there. It's kind of important to note that we probably don't want distortion on our filter here. We want it to be nice and clean. Stereo spread, again, any good synth will have this. This is going to give you a little kind of Haas effect, a little dimension expander on the clicks. So that's really, really nice. And, this is just a really cool start. The next thing I'd probably do is indeed grab an Ableton Auto filter and a couple like time-based effects. Maybe a delay or a flanger would be really nice. The flanger, I'd probably chill the LFO out, maybe just give it a little bit. Not quite as much feedback as the default setting. And in this case, I've got all sorts of fun opportunities with moving the tone and delaying it and adding some resonance there. One of the last things I'd probably do is engage my aux envelope and use this to not modulate the LFO rate, but instead the frequency of my fixed mode oscillator. That's going to go ahead and let me kind of scribble. Do I want it to go fast and then slow? That would be cool. Let's have it stay slow too. So this is now, we're playing with this pitch envelope, and that's really kind of wiggling around the frequency of the clicks. And then meanwhile, the frequency of the filter is getting wiggled around by a separate out of sync thing. So because that relationship starts to create some kind of fun patterns, and it can be really sweet if you go to any of your envelopes in your operator or any FM synthesizer and put them into loop mode. This will take all the time parameters, which is attack, decay, and release, which I'll put at 0 just for good measure, and let that be my overall like LFO time. Get a little more range out of that thing. Of course, this would be a really sick thing to resample, right? Let's go ahead and put a little stereo LFO on there for fun. Right. So that's going to be tight. This one we could maybe distort a little. That's cool. Maybe a little more feedback. That can be really, really fun. I was thinking if you really wanted to get crazy about it, you could do like velocity to pitch envelope amount. That would be really crazy. Aux envelope amount, just crank this all the way up. Then when you play really soft notes, you don't get a lot of frequency modulation on the oscillator, but when you play harder notes, oh, this guy. Get a lot of pitch modulation. So yeah, those are some squishies, and it's just an idea. I think let's try and put a little delay on there in the end, just for good measure. This can be cool. Probably put that in ping pong mode for good measure and kick the mix back a touch. So yeah, this has been your host, James Patrick, making some squishies. You can hit me up anytime, guys, jp@slamacademy.com, and I'd be happy to show you more nuggets, do some lessons or whatever. Let's throw these in the old preset library by hitting the disk button. Pop. I'll probably throw squishies, operator, flanger, combo in there just so I remember. And now I can play with that sound anytime I want. Sweet. So yeah, make some crazy sounds for me and show me your tricks. Thanks for everything.